Learn English through story. The Hidden Whisper of Love. In a quiet village nestled between two mountains, where the mist danced in the early morning and the evenings were lit by the soft glow of oil lamps, there lived a man named Rajiv. He was a carpenter by trade, known for his delicate craftsmanship and his solitary nature. His workshop was a small, wooden shack on the outskirts of the village, surrounded by tall trees and the soft hum of the forest. Rajiv's life was simple, unadorned by any complications of family or friendship, and that was how he liked it, or at least, that was what he had convinced himself. Rajiv had once been a man of deep passion. In his youth, he had fallen deeply in love with a woman named Anjali. She was the kind of person who radiated warmth and kindness, and to Rajiv, she had been the center of his world. But life, with all its unpredictability, had other plans. Anjali had fallen ill, and within a year, she was gone, leaving Rajiv with an emptiness that he could never quite fill. He had buried his feelings deep inside him, afraid to love again, afraid to face the pain that came with it. Years passed, and the village grew accustomed to the sight of Rajiv working in his shop, chiseling away at wood in silence, his eyes always focused on the task at hand. He built chairs, tables, and shelves, all with the same meticulous care, but his heart was never in his work. It was as though he had carved himself into a hollow shell, much like the furniture he made. One evening, as Rajiv sat in his shop finishing a table for the village inn, he heard a soft knock at the door. It was unusual for anyone to visit him at this hour, or at all, for that matter. He wiped his hands on his apron and opened the door to find a woman standing there. She was cloaked in a simple sari, her face half hidden in the shadows, but her eyes gleamed with a strange intensity. "Good evening," she said softly, her voice carrying a gentle melody that seemed to soothe the air around her. "Evening," Rajiv replied, not quite sure what to make of her. "What can I do for you?" The woman stepped forward, her eyes scanning the inside of his workshop. "I've heard of your work, Rajiv. They say you're the finest carpenter in the village." Rajiv shrugged. "I do what I can," she smiled, a small, sad smile that seemed to carry a weight of its own. "I need something built, but it's not like anything you've made before." Curiosity flickered in Rajiv's chest, but he quickly suppressed it. "What is it you need?" "A chest," she said, "to hold memories." Rajiv raised an eyebrow. "A chest to hold memories? You mean a regular chest for keepsakes?" "No," she said, shaking her head. "It's more than that. I need something that can hold the weight of love and loss, something that can keep the whisper of a heart alive." Rajiv felt a strange stirring inside him, something he hadn't felt in a long time, yet the part of his soul he had tried to bury. He frowned. "I don't understand. What exactly do you want me to build?" The woman took a step closer, and in the dim light of the shop, Rajiv could see her face more clearly. There was something ethereal about her, as though she didn't quite belong to the world he knew. "I need you to build a chest," she repeated, "that can hold the things we cannot see but feel. It must be crafted with care, for it will hold the essence of love that has been forgotten, hidden, or lost. It must be strong enough to carry the weight of sorrow but light enough to carry hope." Rajiv felt a cold shiver run down his spine. There was something otherworldly in her request, something that touched a part of him he had long forgotten. "I'm not sure I can build what you're asking for," he said slowly. "You can," the woman said softly, "because you already know what it's like to carry love and loss. You've done it for years." Rajiv felt his throat tighten, the old ache of Anjali's memory surfacing again. He had never spoken of her to anyone in the village, and yet this stranger seemed to know his deepest sorrow. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman smiled, a sad, knowing smile. I am a keeper of whispers, of the love that people hide away, too afraid to let it live in the light. I've come to you because you know what it means to love in silence. Rajiv's heart pounded in his chest. He wanted to shut the door, to turn away from this woman and her strange request, but something inside him wouldn't let him. There was a part of him, buried deep beneath years of solitude and grief, that longed to understand what she was asking of him. I'll do it, he said finally, his voice trembling. I'll build your chest. The woman nodded. Thank you, Rajiv. I'll return when it's ready. And with that, she turned and disappeared into the night, leaving Rajiv standing alone in the doorway, the weight of her words heavy in the air. For the next few weeks, Rajiv worked on the chest, but this time, his heart was in it. He chose the finest wood, carving each piece with painstaking care. He inscribed delicate patterns along the edges, symbols of love and loss, of hope and despair. As he worked, he thought of Angelia, of the love they had shared, of the pain of losing her, and of the years he had spent trying to forget that love in order to protect himself from the sorrow that came with it. But as the chest took shape, something inside Rajiv began to change. He realized that love, even when lost, never truly disappears. It lingers in the quiet moments, in the spaces between words, in the memories we carry in our hearts. Love, he realized, was not something to be hidden away, but something to be cherished, even if it brought pain. When the chest was finally finished, Rajiv felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. He stood back and admired his work, knowing that this was the finest thing he had ever created, and not because of its craftsmanship, but because of the love and emotion he had poured into it. True to her word, the woman returned the next evening. She ran her fingers lightly over the surface of the chest, nodding in approval. It's beautiful, she said softly. You've done well, Rajiv. Rajiv swallowed hard, a lump forming in his throat. What is it for? He asked. What will you put in it? The woman looked at him, her eyes filled with a sadness that seemed to stretch across time. It will hold the love that people are too afraid to claim. The love that is whispered but never spoken aloud. The love that is felt but never acted upon. Rajiv stared at her, his heart aching with understanding. And what will happen to it? It will be kept safe, she said, until the day comes when those who whispered it are ready to speak it aloud, until they are ready to face their fears and embrace the love they've hidden away. Rajiv felt a tear slip down his cheek, but he didn't bother to wipe it away. He thought of Anjali, of the love they had shared, and of the years he had spent hiding from that love, too afraid to face the pain of losing her. Thank you, he whispered, though he wasn't sure if he was speaking to the woman or to the memory of Anjali. The woman smiled, a gentle, knowing smile. You've already thanked me, she said softly, by remembering. And with that, she turned and left, the chest in her arms, disappearing into the night once more. Rajiv stood in the doorway, watching her go, his heart lighter than it had been in years. He knew now that the love, even when lost, was never truly gone. It lived on in the whispers of the heart, in the memories we carry, and in the quiet moments when we allow ourselves to remember. For the first time in years, Rajiv felt at peace. He had built more than a chest, he had built a place for love to live, for love to be remembered, even in its quietest, most hidden form. And in doing so, he had found the strength to face his own loss, to embrace the love he had once known, and to let it live on in his heart, not as a source of pain, but as a quiet, eternal whisper of love. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you enjoy, then please like and share this video, and don't forget to subscribe our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.